What's up everyone, Alex here. A few days ago, I mentioned that I wanted to make a video featuring multiple categories that mimicked other award shows. But then I got into thinking, this might spoil my top 10. And with so many of you clamoring to see your favorite games in my top 10 best RPGs of 2023, I thought that I could do something to highlight the other games that didn't quite make it to the top 10 games of the year. Let's get started. When they announced Alan Wake 2 for the PS5, Series X and S, and PC, I just jumped with joy. Unlike other survival horror games out there, Alan Wake 2 didn't arrive immediately following the original Alan Wake. In fact, I remember Remedy parodying the end of Indiana Jones, showing how they put Alan Wake in a warehouse, not to be touched for a very long time. And I think this is actually a splendid idea, because sometimes the best ideas take a long time to gestate. And by the time this video comes out, many will have praised Alan Wake 2's storytelling as one of the best of this year, and fittingly so. And with two different protagonists and some really genuinely creepy and scary moments, Alan Wake 2 is absolutely deserving to be on this list of the top 20 games of 2023. Like a Dragon Gaiden might be a short game, but that doesn't mean that it's any less than any of the Yakuza games featuring Kiryu. Released on PlayStation and Xbox platforms and PC, Like a Dragon Gaiden puts us in the shoes of one Kazuma Kiryu, post Yakuza 6, and if you play that game and weren't really too pleased with the ending, Like a Dragon Gaiden offers a bridge of sorts that allows Kiryu's journey to continue from Yakuza 6 The Song of Life and right into next year's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And if any of the early trailers featuring Kiryu's story in that game is any indication, your journey through Like a Dragon Gaiden will be a victory lap of sorts. A condensed version of some of the best things that we all loved about Kiryu's adventures, bringing back the action gameplay of the Yakuza games, wrapped in a tight package that is absolutely one of the best games of 2023. Of all the Souls-likes that came out in 2023, Lies of P is absolutely the best one. Released on PlayStation, Xbox platforms, and PC, Lies of P tells the story of Pinocchio in a very dark way that is absolutely inspired by Bloodborne. And that's saying a lot, because a lot of games have tried to copy Bloodborne, and Lies of P is the closest anyone's ever gotten to capturing the magic of said game. It's got challenging bosses, menacing monsters, and level design that's not as labyrinthine as FromSoft's games, which might be a good thing for most people. But the way that it looks, as well as its fantastic atmosphere, is what sets Lies of P apart from a lot of the Souls-likes this year. Pikmin 4 was one of those games that I played through this year, and I absolutely love what they did to the game. Now granted, I skipped from Pikmin 1 all the way to 4, but that doesn't mean that any of the innovations from the previous two games aren't present here. If anything, it just highlights how the series has grown over the span of decades, and Pikmin 4 is still one of the most innovative real-time strategy games I've ever played, despite a bunch of knockoffs that try to gritify this style of gameplay. Yes, I said gritify. Pikmin 4 is absolutely adorable, and decently challenging. And unlike previous Pikmin games, this Switch exclusive no longer has the imposing time limit that the previous games had. Yes, there's still a time limit within the levels, but that overall time limit that kind of loomed over your head, like the number of days you can stay on the planet, that's gone, which is a really huge and significant change that just allows us to enjoy the game a ton more. Master Detective Archive's Raincode might be headed to other platforms even though it's a Switch exclusive right now, but from what I played, this evolution of the Danganronpa formula, without the student killings, is absolutely one of the most compelling and interesting adventure games this year. Every single Master Detective has a special power of sorts that you can utilize during your investigations that really adds a touch of flavor and character to a murder mystery genre that is really just dominated by a few games, Danganronpa included. And the way Raincode combines action gameplay with puzzle solving, thereby creating a more involved experience, is easily one of the things that sets it apart from many other games out there. I remember playing Hi-Fi Rush when it was released on the Series X, NES, and PC earlier this year, and was immediately floored by how the developers were able to combine rhythm gameplay with an action game. Now, that's not exclusive to Hi-Fi Rush, but the game does it so effortlessly, and in such a cool manner that you wouldn't think that the developers of The Evil Within made this game. Absolutely, Hi-Fi Rush is one of those experiences that is just so unique and so refreshing, and even though it came out earlier this year, so many people remember that it existed and was nominated for this year's Backlog Battle Awards. And it's less than half the price of a full-priced game, and it's filled with so much content, it's just a ton of fun. And if you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend checking out this awesome action game. I remember reading through the comments of the 10 best RPGs of 2023 and seeing so many of you clamor for a Trails game to be mentioned in that list. And while that didn't happen, in this video, you're gonna get Trails to Azure at the top 14 spot. Released on PS4, Switch, and PC, Trails to Azure is the conclusion to the amazing cross-bell duology that started with last year's Trails from Zero, culminating in a fantastic finale that cements the cross-bell duology as, in my opinion, the best Trails arc. It's also because of this that I feel that the cross-bell duology in its entirety is the best introduction to the Trails series to date, since these two games represent so much of what has happened and what's to come. It's a great opportunity to experience the Trails series' signature world building, which is unmatched by any JRPG released to date. And after more than a decade of waiting, the Trails series, from Sky to Reverie, is now complete. So, true story, Resident Evil 4 was released way back in the PS2 GameCube days, but it wasn't until the PS3 era that I actually finished Resident Evil 4. Now, with Resident Evil 4 Remake, released on PlayStation platforms, Series X and S, and PC, we got another opportunity to revisit Leon Kennedy as he encounters the Ganados, and using the lighting and graphics engine afforded by the RE engine, along with some tweaks to the gameplay and some adjustments, the Resident Evil 4 Remake is absolutely the best version of Resident Evil 4 to date. Yes, Skyrim jokes aside, the game has been remade so many dang times over the past 2 console generations, but really, this one is absolutely a must-play, and I loved every second of it. And that's coming from a huge fan of the Resident Evil franchise. Alright Capcom, now I want to see Code Veronica, okay? Armored Core 6, released on PlayStation, Xbox platforms, and PC, is the mech game that destroys all other mech games out there. The way that I would personally describe it, it's the Gran Turismo of mech games, meaning if you want to tinker with every single piece of equipment and everything like that, and creating a build that is perfectly suitable for you. There's so much customization in this game that you will probably spend more time customizing your mecha as opposed to playing the actual game, and that's not a bad thing, because the game does have some really challenging bosses and some really truly exciting moments. And keep in mind that it's been about 12 years since Armored Core 5, and that FromSoft, after their huge success with last year's Elden Ring, finally decided, you know what, it's time to go back to basics. To the game that started it all. And as it turns out, it's one of the best games of 2023. Moving on to yet another game that so many of you clamored to see in the 10 best RPGs of 2023, the topmost game on this list, it's Trails into Reverie, released on PlayStation platforms, Switch, and PC. While I personally advocate starting your Trails journey via the cross-bell duology, I absolutely do not advocate starting with Trails into Reverie, because as many of you know, this is basically Trails of Cold Steel 5. Reverie basically tries to tie up a lot of the loose ends that were left hanging from Cold Steel 4 and the previous games in the series, so that way there's a finite conclusion to this saga prior to starting Trails Through Daybreak. Now, obviously not every single thread is going to be resolved in Trails into Reverie, but It should be said that the changes in Trails into Reverie compared to Cold Steel 4 is quite significant. Like being able to have 3 different paths and 3 different stories that you can play with 3 different groups of characters. I thought this is brilliant. Of course, one of the groups is Lloyd Banning's group, the SSS, so I'm already fanboying about that. But there's also Rian's team and this mysterious character whose name is only a letter, C. And with so many of you voting Trails into Reverie and almost eking out and reaching the top 10 spot, I know in my heart of hearts that many of you love this game. And that, my friends, are the top 11 to 20 ranked games that vied for this year's Backlog Battle Awards Game of the Year of 2023. Which games would be in these rankings, apart from the 10 that you've probably ranked? Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And Chloe wants to remind you to subscribe to the $5 tier on the Patreon, where you would have been able to watch this and many other videos in early access, days in advance. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.